So the last one to talk about is follow proper test development process and maximize the use of technology and data. So with regard to the test development process, I'm sure you guys all know there's professional testing standards and legal guidelines out there. It helps ensure your exam scores are valid, reliable, and legally defensible. And that's especially important for licensure exams. What sometimes happens with programs is they'll get really popular out there, and then all of a sudden, some organization will want to use it for more higher stakes type of a decision. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, wait a minute. We didn't realize that there are these rules in place or these best practices in place and we should have followed them. And it's happened to a lot of big credentialing programs that are out there that started years and years ago, where they kind of put something out there, all of a sudden it became very, very popular. And then they realized that there's professional testing standards and said, oh, we need to go back and follow them. Also, again, if you're going to do ANSI or NCCA or any types of those accreditation standards, or if you want your program to be accepted for licensure in certain states, a lot of them will really look and see if you followed these best practices. Again, get lots of calls from clients that say, oh, this state wants to have reciprocity or do something or other. And then if you look at what the program has done, they don't meet those standards. So, and then the other biggest thing and the most important reason is basically it ends up on a higher quality product. There's a method to our madness of why we have the different steps involved in the test development process that we do. We've been doing research in this area for many, many years as psychometricians. And at the end of the day, if you put out a product out that's not a quality product, employers are going to start to notice. So they're going to have people that get hired that burn the credential, that aren't competent on the job. And after a while, they're going to start connecting the dots and your program's going to lose credibility. So the biggest reason really is it's the right thing to do. And it really does end up in a better quality product. Also, you want to streamline your test development process using technology whenever appropriate. So nowadays, a lot of times you can do virtual workshops for item writing. We do them for standard setting. We've even done for JTAs, for all the different steps in the process. You do have to be careful when you do them. It takes, I think, a certain type of facilitator to do them well, because you're dealing with people that are working at home and there's distractions. And then sometimes you won't have enough people show up to do something. And then you've got to figure out, like, do you still go forward with it or not? So it takes a lot of commitment on the SME's part, and it also takes a very good facilitator to do it successfully, but it is a possibility. I would offer a couple caveats. One, if you have an aggressive timeline with a hard deadline that you cannot meet, I would always do it on site. So we used to joke in item writing, Larry will probably remember this, you lock them in a room for item writing, feed them, and don't let them come out until they're done with their assignments. So hate to say it, but if you've got something that's got to get out, doing it on site is always the best way. And I can tell you from a facilitator working on the test development side is you just miss those nonverbal cues. You can't tell. I mean, if I'm up front and we're working on something and I kind of see a deer in headlight or something else going on, then I know that there's an issue with this item and we can really look at it. And it's hard to pick up on that virtually. The other thing I would say is that the subject matter experts have not worked together before. It's always a good idea to do the on-site first, because that really builds that relationship and that networking. So your biggest challenge in doing things virtually a lot of times, and that's when you really need to recruit more subject matter experts than you need, is you're going to have a lot of people that just aren't going to show up. And so if you want your people to show up, the best way I find is do your first workshop on-site, have some relationship networking types of activities that go on, and so that they feel like they need to show up for their peers, basically. Oh, and leverage data to create more products and continuously improve your program. So circling back to kind of our initial conversation, leverage survey data to create more products. I attended a couple sessions, I think it was here or ICE a couple of years ago. And I thought it was a really great idea, because there's a lot of times we're collecting data throughout the test development process, like a job task analysis survey. And in this particular session, they were talking about the person taking that and creating like an industry report, because a lot of companies want to know where they fall within an industry, within a job role. So a lot of times you can use that to provide that type of information. Sometimes companies can use the information related to the tasks that you have people do or competencies to help them write job descriptions, or even put kind of benchmarking tools together. There's lots of ways that you can create more products out of some of the information that you're collecting that you might want to think about. Because the big thing in doing something like this is you get to use once or collect once and use many for your data, which is always a good thing. But then also you get to be seen as a thought leader in the industry, which is always important. So I just thought that was a really good idea, because especially job task analysis surveys, we always have questions in there as far as, kind of the state of the industry and things like that. And I think that's really helpful information. The other thing is you can use your statistics on your items. Of course, you can use them to improve items. The other thing we often use the statistics is to identify what I call kind of your model items. So especially if you've got scenario-based items. We all know that the scenario-based items often measure more applied knowledge, which is what we want, but they're also the most difficult to write. So a lot of times, though, if you can identify some scenario items that are performing well statistically, there's some variables in there that you can switch out to basically create some more items and do it in a much more efficient manner. So that's one of the things oftentimes we'll work with our clients to do, because as we all know, the item writing is the most difficult part. And then last but not least, kind of circling back, survey your test takers and your customers. You've got an existing program, see what they like about it, what they don't like about it, if there are areas that they would like to improve. A lot of times you're going to get feedback on your exam saying, maybe you're covering this area a little bit too much, this one not enough, maybe there's some new technology. The big thing with creating a credentialing program is it's not a one and done type of thing. If you want to stay competitive, you've got to keep getting that information and looking at ways that you can improve the program over time. So especially these days with all the technological advances that are going on, I'm sure you guys, everything with our Attendify and all the stuff, it's happening at lightning speed. And so for us as an industry to stay relevant, we're going to have to do more and more of this to stay competitive. So just to kind of summarize the 4 benefits of obeying the 4 laws. Basically create a higher quality credentialing program, less time, less cost. Again, focus on what your pain point is, get really clear about that. Look in the data, see if you can get information about specifically what you should cover, and then also use those specifics to help you market that program out to your marketplace, because speak their language. Better communicate the value of your program based on the real market needs. Maximize your investment in technology and streamline your development. Again, using technology when it makes sense. Keep in mind that you've got the human factor there, so you're working with people. And then also enhance your program over time based on market feedback, just to make sure it stays competitive. Again, it's not a one and done, and you need to really kind of keep looking at ways you can either offer more products to your industry, seen as a thought leader, spread out or fulfill more of your product on your product side of things. So